You are listening to another DX Talk, delivering vital knowledge that empowers leaders to drive transformational change in their businesses. Brought to you by Quantum, facilitators of future-focused operating models that balance people, processes, and technology towards a new way of working.
So our guest today is Andrew Mitchem, the Forex training coach. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hi there, Russell. Nice to be here.
So I think first of all, it'd be nice maybe if you give us an introduction to yourself, who you are, what you do, and what your journey has been up to this point.
Yeah, sure, Russell. So I'm Andrew Mitchem. I live in Nelson, which is at the top of the South Island in beautiful New Zealand. And I've been trading Forex full-time for 17 years now. Before that, I was a dairy farmer, so nothing to do with trading, nothing to do with automation at all, and stumbled into trading almost by accident. Got hooked on it, realized it was a lot harder than most people tell you it is, but stuck at it, developed something that worked for me. And then for the last 11, nearly 12 years, I've been teaching people how to trade manually the strategy that I've been trading all those years.
So I think we could probably spend an hour talking about that story, which I know is a very cool story. But the reason we're talking with you today is you have built an automated trading platform called Pattern Trader. And what I want to point out at this point is that Pattern Trader, so Andrew has already shared with me, Pattern Trader is less than 24 months old. So it was productionized in approximately 12 months. It's been live for about 9 months now.
Yes.
It is a SaaS-based software platform. It has customers and it has revenue. So this is and I think that's an amazing story in itself. But I think the question at this point is, do you want to share with people what Pattern Trader is, how it works, and what people are achieving with it?
Yeah, sure. So Pattern Trader is a platform that allows anybody, but right now mostly currency traders, Forex traders, to create a group of robots or bots and then blend them together in a portfolio to basically have rules and conditions that are that they're happy with, that they're applicable to their risk management. And then it's all based on the strategy that I trade manually, but we've tried to automate that process. Very easy for people to create their own group of bots within literally a couple of minutes. And then the process is that those bots alert the user to potential trading opportunities. Now, either semi-automated through your phone, through something like Telegram, or completely automated, depending on which way the user wants to use those. And the user then decides, looks at their computer or their phone and go, yep, I like the look of this setup, or no, I don't. And the software takes the trade automatically for them at their risk level, straight directly into their currency account with their broker. And it really is as simple as that. So it's very, very clever technology. It's not like anything else we've ever seen before in the Forex market. And yeah, like you said, it's been running for 9 months, and we've got some very happy clients making some exceptional returns.
Are you able to give without sharing anything you're uncomfortable sharing, are you able to discuss how many users are on there and what kind of results people are achieving?
Yep, I could probably go onto it live right now on another screen here and give you an exact example. But we've probably got about 200 people using it live. And I am just going to, I should have had this open for you, Russ, I'm very sorry, but I'm going to give you some live results that people have been achieving from our leaderboard. So right now, annualized returns, or actual returns, are ranging from about sort of the top 20 are ranging from about 8% through to about 26% since they've started running those systems. And annualized results are anywhere between around sort of 20% through to some are up to as much as potentially 300% returns, depending on, of course, assuming the current results continue. So some pretty good results there, considering these would either be completely automated or semi-automated trading systems.
I think where your platform starts to become very, very interesting is it is underpinned. Obviously, there's a front end from the user's perspective, and there's a web application, but the functionality is also underpinned by predictive analytics and machine learning.
Yes.
Do you want to share with us a little bit about the role that those two capabilities are playing on your platform?
Yeah, sure. So when someone creates a bot, it's using historical data to give the outcomes of what would have been achieved, obviously, over in the past. But going forward, what we've tried to do is not just use historical data, because we've found that with so many different automated robots trading systems out there, is that they all tend to fail the minute you put them live. And that's one of the things that we were really conscious of doing. And I've spent literally tens of thousands of dollars on $97 robots and those type of things like most Forex traders have over the years, and it's just never worked. So that's one thing we said, look, if all else, let's not fall into that trap. So we've used the system so that ongoing it takes the more recent data and it's analyzing that data to current market conditions, and it's using that information to adjust profit targets and stop losses of individual trades that it's taking going forward. So it's continually learning according to the patterns that we're using, according to different currency pairs that we're trading. So it's adapting to current conditions, because of course, being in the financial markets, they're constantly changing.
I think if I work to the assumption that most of the people listening to this don't trade Forex and don't understand, if I break this down a little bit,
yes,
you're essentially buying or selling currency pairs.
Correct.
And in a given trade, there's three critical points.
Yes.
One is the point at which you enter the trade.
Mm-hmm.
The second would be your stop loss, which is effectively how much risk you're taking. And that's,
yes,
if this goes the wrong way, it's around bailing.
Yep.
And your third is where you're taking your profit
yes,
at whatever level. And so where predictive analytics is coming into this is it is using, like you said, it is using past data as well as recent data to determine where to set the stop loss position and where to set the take profit position. So you're using predictive analytics to optimize the potential outcome for the user based on probability.
Yes, absolutely. And we sort of fine tune that even more, because in the Forex markets, there's 8 currencies that we trade mostly. And whenever you see like the news, for example, you'd see, being in New Zealand, we'd see the New Zealand dollar against the US or against the yen or against the pound or against the euro. But there's other currencies, obviously it's like the Canadian against the yen or against the franc or the euro US. So there's a combination of, let's call it, say, 30 different currency pairs. So each currency pair has its own behavioral patterns, and it could be depending on the time of year or time of month or time of day even, because of course us in New Zealand, our market's shut when the European market's open. So there's all these different characteristics about different currency pairs and times of the day. So the software is analyzing that as well. It's not just saying, here's this pattern, we're going to take that exact same pattern on the New Zealand US dollar or the Canadian dollar yen. It's specific to each currency pair as well. So it's quite clever what it's analyzing, and it's using that information going forward to make adjustments to give, according to current conditions, optimum levels for entry and exits. So, like I said, that was one thing that we were very conscious of when we put this together, of making sure we had something that's very different, that does adapt, that's ongoing, it's continually learning, it's changing to current conditions.
I think the second thing you've said, which I really, really like, is, so when most businesses think of automation, we think about replacing human involvement in activities, and on low value tasks, that's necessarily absolutely true. But there's a concept we've been talking about internally, and rather than human replacement, we talk about human enablement, and it's around, yes, how do we enable humans more? And what your technology is doing is, it's not replacing human involvement, but number one, it's augmenting it. And number two, it's actually empowering the human more, right? It's, yes, it's allowing the human to look at more. It's taking the grunt work out and bringing what's required to the human to make a decision. Here is what I can present to you. Now use your knowledge on this decision, right, to decide what's right or what's wrong or what you're going to do.
That's 100% correct, because we don't want this as like a black box, just plug and play system. It's not designed, like it can do that, but it's not designed to do that. We're wanting it to be like more of a semi-automated trading system, so that the user still uses their brain, their knowledge. They're still gaining information about what's happening in the world, like around the world with currencies, etc., and fundamentals. So they still have that going on. And basically, like you said, this system takes away all that heavy lifting work. And it's saying, according to the rules that you've set up, here's a potential trade. You can click on your phone or on your computer. It sends you the link to look at the image of the chart right now. It does all the work about knowing the position size according to your risk tolerance levels, all that type of thing's taken care of. And basically, it looks at the chart and you go yes or no. And it then places it for you, puts in your safety stop loss level, like your safety net level, puts in your profit target, your entry. You don't need to be at your computer when the price hits that level or anything. You just literally press yes or no and it does it all for you. So your risk management is massively important. That's all taken care of. Your reward to risk, which means that you're looking at making, depending on the trade, 2 or 3 times your risk on a trade, another important part of trading success. That's all taken care of as well. All that's taken care of. You're not sitting there scanning charts. It takes a lot of the human failings of trading, which is the emotions, takes that out of it. Like your head and your heart are 2 big failings of manual Forex traders. Because it's real, it's real money. It's happening right now, and it affects you. And so by taking that away, a good chunk of that away, you're just basically looking at this chart, knowing what you've been taught, and go, yes, I like this trade, or no, I don't. Whether that be the New Zealand dollar, US dollar, because we live here, or whether it be the euro, US dollar, it doesn't matter. It's the pattern that you're looking for according to your set of rules. And you go, yes or no. And then you basically walk away and let it do its thing. So a big part of the trading failure of people trading, manual trading, your emotions, you're taking a good chunk of that away. Plus, when you're manual trading, you tend to think, well, I'm sitting at my computer. I'm going to find a trade. And it's like, well, the market may not be ready at that time. This takes all that side of the equation out as well, because it presents to you the opportunity when the market's ready, not when you're ready.
The other side of that is looking at this, and you've sort of articulated this really well, is looking at a process end to end, right? In this case, it's the process of trading. And it's around understanding where humans add the most value to that process.
Yes.
And where technology can add the most value. And then how do you bring those together in the right blend, which is, from the sounds of it, and also from what I know, is something that you've done really, really well.
Yes. And I think that ongoing human intelligence and knowing what may be coming up in the news, and knowing that it's getting to the weekend, or there could be an election going on tomorrow, let's say, all those type of things that the human knows, it's still massively important to this. And ultimately, this is some form of investment. And to me, rather than just handing a chunk of cash over to fund manager to go and do it for you, which really you have no involvement, you have no knowledge, no interest, you've got no idea what's happening. This is still keeping that human sort of intelligence and wanting to know as part of the whole process, which to me as a trader, I think that's massively valuable. To someone that likes this type of product that's not a trader, I just think it's good that you know what you're investing in as well. You don't need to be reading multiple websites every day. You just need to have a little bit of knowledge of what to look for, and it creates an interest for people.
I think there's a key message there, and you pointed it out. This doesn't a technology like this, or the service you're offering, doesn't mitigate the need for someone to invest in themselves from a knowledge perspective and gain a level of knowledge. You are still accountable. You do have to know what you're doing, right? Yes. The technology is simply going to help you. But you said something before, and I think that takes us to a really interesting space. And you talked about the big investment firms and having to go to a fund manager.
Yes,
and it's quite topical if we look at what's happening with GameStop at the moment. So GameStop, for anyone listening to this podcast later, that this story erupted last week, and it's a David and Goliath story where the retail investors have banded together to go, no, we're going to take on the big hedge fund firms. And really one of the reasons I think what you're doing is so powerful is that you're, through technology, you are democratizing access to Forex trading, and you are empowering the individual. And like we said, you still have to invest in yourself to gain a level of knowledge about what you're doing, but you're actually empowering the individual to do this themselves, to take something that we might have perceived previously had to be done by your bank or a fund manager who you pay big fees to. Now you can do it yourself with that education and training.
That's right. And that's where I think this has massive potential for even like the non-traders, but it just offers it the ability for so many people to use something like this that normally I think most people think they cannot get into. How
did this journey start for you? And specifically, you're a kind of a first-time user of predictive analytics and machine learning and a business model. Like, how did that come about?
Yep. So interesting that a client of mine who lives over in Ireland, he joined me on my manual coaching course back in 2012. And he was a struggling Forex trader, very smart guy, engineer, lost his job, and wanted to get into trading, just wasn't working for him. Took the course, worked hard, got great returns, made it work, did all the right things, asked questions, attended webinars, all those type of things. And he came to me a couple of years ago now and said, look, I've got this idea of trying to make your strategy, which we know works and is proven, and try to automate this as much as we can. And I'd always wanted to do that, but just never really found the person to do that. And I think that's a real special combination blend that anybody else should look for, making sure obviously you're working with the right people, because I've always had that desire to try and automate or semi-automate the strategy, just out of interest and saving time and offering it to the ability for more people to trade it. But I also needed to work with someone who understood it as well and understood trading. I don't think I could have just gone and found any programmer out there, online and worked with, because it would have probably been okay. But the two of us bouncing ideas off about trading, him with the ability to do the programming and that knowledge, me with the trading ability, and also with the ideas of how to evolve this and how I want it to look from a client's point of view. I think we've got a really good blend there.
I think that it's a really nice point, and certainly I forget which podcast now, but another one of our guests, he said his advice was you have to ask yourself, whenever you look at changing your business model with technology, you have to ask yourself, am I a widget provider who uses technology to enable what I do, or am I a technology provider who happens to do widgets? And
yes,
because the difference there, depending on how you answer that, defines about how you move forward. And I think you've been really clear that you're a domain knowledge expert, and therefore the necessity to work with the right partner for you to bring this to life. But actually what you've delivered, because remember for our listeners that we are talking about a live product in the market.
Yes,
you've now demonstrated the power of the right partnership with the right people involved.
And making it work first time as well. It's not like it's our 10th attempt type of thing. It's we've obviously done a lot of sort of thoughts gone into it, and a lot of asking other people as well has gone into it, and it's still evolving. But when we took it out there to the market and made it live, we were really happy with it. Sure, it's still continually got even better, and we're adding more features. But we were at a level when it went live that we were really, really happy with it, and it was, definitely at a level where people were thrilled to jump on board and take it.
I think, and so we were having a chat offline, and it was around 12 months where from ideation, like from the point where we went, actually, here's the idea, to now we've got this live.
Yes.
For I guess a perspective that for a change or bringing something new into a business, that's quite a rapid change, which is great. And we are now not even at the end of your second year. We've got users on board who are using it, and there's a couple of really, really key things in there which are consistent themes. And I know you've talked about the fact that you delivered, actually, so the first one is minimum viable product. You didn't try and deliver utopia. You had a minimum, let's just get something out there that is a minimum viable way that works, because once it's out there, now it's in the market. So that's the first thing. Number two, it was around customer feedback. Quite early on, you brought customers in, and you've evolved this based around your users. And number three being the key point is it is continually evolving, right? So once and key message is transformation, never stops, right?
That's right.
The second you stop, you're going backwards, and
yes,
you continually evolve based on the feedback of your customers, and that's where you start iterating and improving or bringing on new features.
That's right.
Which was really cool. Nice.
I think you've got to get something out there. Obviously, it's got to be good enough, in the first place. You can't just put anything out there, but we were very, very comfortable that this was really good. The client feedback, that's interesting, because that's a balance between offering it to people who, we only offered it to some of my coaching clients. We just picked a group of those people and said, please try it for us, give us your feedback. And then becomes the issue of, you get lots and lots of feedback, and we want this adding and we want that adding and all these extra things, which of course for the poor programmer coder guy just takes forever to do one of these. And then we had to think of, like, how many of these are real valid for what we want, or just one person said, I want this, but it's not really going to aid everybody else. And then when you offer something like this to people, you've got to be really careful of, everybody goes, right, I want the full thing now. You keep talking about it. I've given you feedback. I like the sound of it and I want it. And so it's a real fine balance between getting it to that marketable level and not rushing that process either, but also getting something out. But I think the client's feedback is really important. But I think we kind of, we didn't like copy someone else's idea and change it around. We didn't like find another product and go, oh, we could make this better by changing A, B, and C. We actually didn't do any of that. We just took our own product and go, this is what we want it to work like and look like, and user-friendly wise, this is what we want it to do. Now let's make it.
I think something you've said, which you articulated really well, which I have, I'm just trying to pop something on another screen at the moment. But the first thing you talked about is, like you said, you are always going to get magnitudes of requests and feedback. And it's around linking those back to the strategic objectives of what you're trying to achieve to start with. I'm going to drop a link to this in the show notes. So Gartner every year publishes the top strategic technology trends, and the 2021 trends are out. And trend number 2, which is what you've just been talking about, they call it total experience. And the total experience is the intersection between the user experience or the client experience, the user experience as in the business user, and then the required business outcomes. And you articulated that really, really well, where if you bring all those three together, it is actually the intersection of those three. If you can move those forward together, that's where you get really valuable progress that benefits everyone, and that's going to move the business forward, which is or the service or the product, which is a really powerful place to be. So as I said, I'll drop a link to that article in the show notes. If I go back a couple of steps, effectively the process of building this product was, the minimum viable product was 12 months, and it sounds like you said that prior to that you didn't necessarily have a knowledge of predictive analytics or machine learning from a business user's perspective. So what was your learning journey like? From going from this idea to now all of a sudden I have a product underpinned by smart technologies. What was that learning curve like for you?
Ooh, interesting, because it was, I suppose we were trying to do something that not many people in this market had done. And that's what we had to try and ensure that we achieve to make this work and to make it different, to make it work in real time. The learning, I suppose there was a lot of, backwards and forwards between the developer and myself of what is it that we're looking for with backtesting figures using historical data. What is it that we're looking for going forward? We had to try and figure out, what's it going to do to take more recent data and use that going forward? How is it going to change the entry level. At the entry level, it may have chosen 5 years ago for a pattern on a certain currency pair might be different today. And because the market's evolving and changing and conditions are different. So I think that was our big key, apart from the actual strategy. You still have to have the strategy that works in the first place. Like automation or semi-automation cannot magically fix something that doesn't work in the first place. And I think that was why the programmer and myself got together, because he had it was this 2019 when we sort of really started talking about this. He'd had 7 years of manual trading my strategy by then. He knew it worked. He had confidence to invest his own time and knowledge into this, because he'd seen it proven to be working. And I think that's really important, that that he had the idea and the ability to do that, the coding side of things, and the predictive and the constant changing. I had the sort of the background knowledge of the actual trading and what we wanted this thing to do. Not every single aspect of what I look at in manual trading we've included in this, because we found that it got to a stage where the more and more things that you add, the actual performance and results didn't improve. And sometimes they got quite a lot worse, because the human eye can see certain things and know certain things are coming that the machine can never know. So I think that's why we prefer to call it semi-automated trading, because you've got to have the balance of both to get the best out of it.
I think way back when you started this comment, you hit on something hugely critical, and you said that you set out to do something that hasn't been done before. And the reason I say that's powerful, like if you're an existing business, I think the trap people fall into is they look at their business and they go, well, how do we do this? How do we optimize this process? How do we save time by this? Whereas actually what you've done is you've gone, this is what I want to achieve in the world.
Yes.
And you've come from the perspective of being unconstrained by an existing business model.
Yes.
You've got an existing business, but you actually went, I'm going to separate myself from that existing business.
Yes.
And I'm going to go into call it an innovative space around what is the best way to do this, and what that's resulted in is a separate entity from.
It is. It's very, very separate. Yeah. It has some correlation, but we're deliberately keeping it separate.
Well, I think that's a really key learning. So for any business owner out there who's talking about how do I change my business, I would say focus on the outcome that you want to make real in the world.
Yes. And
then ask yourself, what is the most interesting way to achieve this? Don't start from the perspective of how do I do that in my business. Just go, how do I achieve this? Maybe that's part of your business model. Maybe it's not, but be open to that, because I think what you're telling us is proof of what can come from taking that kind of approach.
Yeah, and I think there's two things to add to that. One that I've mentioned: don't start with something that's broken.
Yeah.
Make sure it works in the real world with manually doing it, whether it be trading, whatever it may be. That process that you're trying to automate, it has to still work and be valid and be proven. And also, depending again what it is you're trying to achieve with this, it's like, can it be scalable? Like, can we get 1 million users on this? Are we restricted to 200? What's holding it back from just being scalable? And I suppose if you want to make it that scalable, you've got to work that into what it is you're developing. You can't suddenly have something that's automated in one process, but then you're getting 1,000 questions from an individual on another way, because you just can't make that work. Or you couldn't have something that, because we've got clients all around the world using this, and will do, all different time zones, I can't be sat here having people emailing me questions and wake up in the morning and there's 100 questions from people in Europe and America, because you've got to make it work that it's scalable but workable for people. And I think the outcome of that was making it that it's a very simple, easy to use setup process for people as well.
I think there's a lot of gold in there, and the first one, as you said, don't automate something that's broken, and technology will give you exponentially greater results. And if you have something working, they will be good results, and if you have something broken, they will be problems and bad results.
Yes.
There's a lot of, I guess for the listeners, a lot of presentations when people are trying to point to some kind of examples, in the business world of what's right. You point to people like Facebook or Uber, and they refer to them as exponential organizations. And there's been a framework. I'm a little bit off topic here. So there's been a framework developed, and it's called the OpenXO framework, and it basically tries to answer the question of if there's an exponential business, what are the characteristics of that exponential business that people could take and apply to their business model in order to achieve what you've talked about, which is how do I be scalable, and how do I be exponential, and how do I exponentially grow? And I'll sort of stop at this point, but I'd go as far as to say, with my knowledge of that framework, that your business model has a lot of those characteristics. I know that wasn't necessarily by design, but to any listener out there, if you're liking what you've heard, I'd really encourage you, and I'll put a link to this in the show notes, to go and have a look at the OpenXO framework. It's their foundation course is effectively free if you just want to gain an understanding of it, but it's a really powerful thing to understand. Cool. So that's cool.
Yeah, really good.
So one of the advantages, one of the reoccurring messages from guests, which we sort of kept hearing, particularly later last year, was around how AI is creating strategic advantage for businesses. And I mean, that's one, a strategic advantage, but number two, leveling the playing field between small businesses and large businesses. And I think to some degree, a lot of if I asked you, how is that true for you, a lot of that's already come out. But is there anything else you would add to that question, or sort of that?
I think with this kind of proves that you don't need to be an enormous, large business to get involved in something like this. Ultimately, this is one guy in Nelson in New Zealand and another guy in Ireland who both have a passion for trading. So you don't. I think people get the perception that to do something like that, you've got to be big to start with. And you look at like the Facebook example that you mentioned, and all the stories around the Googles and the Microsofts and all that, they've all started in universities or garages or small scale. And I'd just say to people, you don't need to be a big company with multi-million-dollar budgets to do something. You just need to have the idea, find a few right people that are all on the same page, and who have that desire and that passion to do something different. I think that's important. I've never ever, no, I can be 100% honest here, I've never ever have I looked at this as something that it's going to be a money maker. I've done this because we had a passion to actually make something that's different. If it makes money and it is and it does, then for us, then that's great. But it's making money for the clients first. Because for this to work, for people to keep using it and keep subscribing, and for all our time and effort that's gone into it to pay for that, this has to work as a trading product for the individual. It has to work for them. If it doesn't work, we're going to get people join for 1 or 2 months and give up. And the next people join for 1 or 2 months and give up. And then everybody goes, oh, this product doesn't work, and it stops. Whereas this is something that is proven to work manually. It's proving to have tremendous results live over the last 9 months, and people are loving using it. So, I think it's really important for people to actually have that passion in doing something and actually make the product. Because if you make the product and it's good and it benefits lots and lots of people and they love it, then it will come back and benefit you as well.
I've already said this, but I have to reiterate again, like, I'm really taken back by your commitment to the user, and I genuinely believe that you're going to drive success for that basis, right? And any business who takes that approach, you almost can't go wrong if you ensure that what you're doing is built around the user and adds value to the user. Yes, in balance with commercial reality, that there is probably putting you ahead of most of your other competitors from the start. In this process, we've sort of had 24 months, right? What are the big lessons that you've learned through the process to date?
I suppose when you're starting with the product, it's almost like when we talked about it to start with, it's like, well, is it needed? Is that product needed? Yes or no? Is it needed by lots of people? Is it going to change lives? Is it going to save time? Those type of things come into it. And then once you get that answer, it's like, well, can it now be created? You know, what can you do to make it work? Who do you need to have on board to make it work? So those type of things, quite simple, but, you know, quite, I think, important things as well. And again, you know, we're constantly talking about the customer, but how will it benefit that customer? How will they find it easy to use? Why would they pay money for this? Why would they use it? Why would they entrust this with their trading accounts? All those kind of questions came out, and deliberately not looking at that black box, one system fits all. You know, it's like, well, we still want to, ultimately, I'm coming from the Forex trading coach. You know, I'm still out there trying to get people to have some form of interest in the market. So if we didn't want that, we would just sell a product for $99 and go say, plug that in and just turn your computer on next year and see what you've made. You know, but we didn't want that. We wanted something that still teaches and educates, not only the product doing that itself by its AI and its learning, but actually the product teaching the end user to have an interest in their investment. You know, it's like, well, if you go and buy a rental property, it's not like you just go, oh, I'm not going to go and see that for another year or two. You know, you have an interest in it, of where it is, what the market's doing in that area, what your tenants are like, all those type of things. So this is the same, but just a different market.
Well, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently over this journey?
I don't think there's a lot that we would do differently, to be honest. I think we took it at a pretty casual but professional sort of approach. When we were working together in the early days, we never pushed anybody for timelines, said, right, you have to be back to me by that day. We were not, you know, like, we were both busy people doing our own things as well. We're not just sitting there letting it drift, but we also were on the understanding is like, you know, this is a research thing, a development thing. Yes, we'll do it, and we'll do it timely. But we weren't constantly like, where is it, and nagging each other and stuff like that. We didn't do that at all. And I think because of that, it actually flowed even better, and it opened up to really good ideas developing from it. As I said near the beginning, I think when you open up a product to get feedback from a group of almost like the sort of beta test people, I think we did that nicely. We explained to people that this was new, what it was. They understood trading, and we didn't jump on board with every single idea that every single person asked for. You know, we took that information, we analyzed it and go, yeah, I actually think that would benefit the product and other people, or no, this is just one person wanting a wish list. You know, you can't please all the people all the time. And I think you've got to take that kind of your own knowledge of going, well, I like what that person's saying, but I don't think it's really going to enhance the product, or it's going to make it more complicated, or it's going to make it more expensive, or the actual trading performance is going to be worsened because of this. So I'm pleased the way we did that. We picked a number of people, a good number of people, good sort of market coverage. We didn't sort of, you know, we didn't drop everything to make it work like tomorrow either. You know, I don't think you can, although you said we've done it relatively fast, I don't think we didn't rush it either. You know, deliberately didn't rush it. We never had a set date for it to be ready to the market. It was like it was going to be ready when we felt it was ready. So I think all those things are, you know, are quite important for the way that we worked, you know, and made it work.
If we had someone out there and who's not using AI, and however you want to frame that up in their businesses, and they want to start, what would be the top 3 pieces of advice that you would give them on how to approach that? Something.
Yep. So I suppose it's like, what are you doing it for? What's your outcome that you're looking for from it? You know, are you doing it to save time? Are you doing it to save employment costs? Are you doing it to make things more efficient? I suppose it's one thing that someone always has to bear in mind is that I suppose as we get more and more automated in everything we do, and autoresponders and auto this and auto that, it's fantastic, but you still got to have that human element in it as well, and keep it personal. I think having a story is good as well. I've always used, because it's true, I was a dairy farmer who got divorced and ended up with a young kid at, what was Thomas at the time? He was about 2 or 3. I was suddenly looking after him majority of the time and needed something to do. And I stumbled into trading Forex. It's a real genuine reason. That's how it started. So I think for people going forward, if they've got a real reason of why they want that automation, or why they want to change or benefit people, or make a product cheaper or more efficient, have a story behind that as well, like a real reason, because I think that helps other people to connect to that.
Yeah, Andrew, I think it's probably almost one of the more powerful. There's been so many powerful points in this whole talk, and you've had a really important one there. And I was trying to think, if I was to pull out my top 5 points from you, that's now number 1, and it's start with your why.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
If anyone out there doesn't understand that concept, go and look up Simon Sinek on
That's
YouTube,
right.
and
he's brilliant.
That'll come out in 7 minutes. But
yes,
that's really, really powerful.
Go and listen to the one about the Wright brothers and that story. It's an incredible, powerful podcast. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So number 1 would be your why. Number 2 is understanding. You've said this is all you, right? It's know the outcome, know the value that you're trying to get to for your user and for your clients. And ultimately, it's start with them. And number 3, it's be agile, and agile methodology is a huge buzzword at the moment. But I think you've proven, right? You've taken an idea and delivered a commercial model in 12 months, and in the world of business, that is actually really, really powerful. So focus on your minimum viable product, focus on what your customer's telling you, and then iterate.
Yep.
And I'd encourage you, and Andrew framed this up really, really well. When you iterate, be really careful about how you decide what your iterations are, right? Make sure that those iterations align not only to customer value, but value back to your business.
That's right.
The next one is partner, and you've perfectly demonstrated the power of partnerships, and what can be achieved when you get the right mix of people in the room, and be open to what those partnerships look like, because it might not mean through what you think of as your current business model. And again, perfect example of how this has created something new with necessarily future potential. And my last one is, whenever you do something, whenever you build a business case, is focused not only on, as Andrew's pointed out, the savings, so the time savings or the cost savings, but focus on the new growth that it's going to enable. Focus on how it will deliver new revenue or new benefit that you're not currently getting. And if you can build a business case based on your soft benefit, based on your known sort of savings, then the upside is all gravy. We've mentioned a lot of stuff today, so I'm going to have to go back and pick up on everything we've mentioned. But one of them was the OpenExo framework. I'm going to make sure there's a link to that in the show notes. I've mentioned the Gartner 2021 technology trends. Obviously, they're in the show notes. We make a podcast recording, and we make a video recording. So depending on which one you listen to, if you want the other, that link will be in the show notes. And we write a summary article packing out all the real good stuff and summarizing that. That jumps into the show notes as well. So, but before we do go, Andrew, if I guess it's a couple of things. If anyone's really interested in Pattern Trader and what you've created, where can they find that?
So we've got a website that explains all about it. There's a free trial as well for people for a month, and it's called TFTC patterntrader.com. And if anybody's interested in manual coaching and learning how to trade what we think is the wonderful world of Forex trading, it's the forextradingcoach.com. So the two websites, they will both reach me. And
can people reach out to you on LinkedIn as well?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as well, and I'll get you to pop a link on this podcast as well.
Perfect. So both of those websites plus that LinkedIn profile will be on the show notes. Andrew, your time is incredibly valuable, but you've given so many great insights today. Just thank you so much. It's this content, this interview has been great.
Oh, thank you for asking. I've really enjoyed it. Hope people gain a lot of benefit as well from it.